The morning sun of Nexus Prime cast long shadows across the massive training grounds of the Galactic Military Academy. Cadet Lisa Martinez wiped sweat from her forehead as she finished her 5th lap around the combat course. Her human lungs burned with effort, but she kept running. Around her, alien cadets from dozens of different worlds moved with their own unique styles of grace and power. A tall Zephyrian cadet glided past her without seeming to break a sweat. His silver skin gleamed in the sunlight, and his movements were smooth like flowing water. The Zephyrians always made everything look easy with their advanced technology built right into their bodies. Lisa had learned not to be jealous. Every species had their gifts. She reached the finish line and bent over, hands on her knees, catching her breath. Her friend Ben Torres jogged up beside her, his dark hair stuck to his head with sweat. "You beat your time again," Ben said, checking his watch. "The instructors are going to notice." Lisa straightened up and shrugged. "Good. Maybe they'll stop treating us like we don't belong here." The Galactic Military Academy was supposed to be the best training facility in known space. Cadets came from every corner of the galaxy to learn combat tactics, space warfare, and diplomatic relations. For most species, getting accepted was the highest honor their world could offer. For humans, it was still something new and strange. Earth had only joined the galactic community 20 years ago. Most of the other species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. They had weapons that could destroy planets, ships that moved faster than light, and abilities that seemed like magic to human eyes. Many of them looked at humans like they were children playing with toys they didn't understand. Lisa and Ben walked toward the main academy building. It was enormous, built from some kind of white stone that never seemed to get dirty. Towers reached high into the sky and bridges connected different sections like a city floating in the air. Students from hundreds of different worlds filled the walkways. A group of Mentari cadets sat under a tree, their pale blue skin almost glowing as they communicated without speaking. Their large eyes were closed in concentration, sharing thoughts directly from mind to mind. Lisa had tried to understand how psychic abilities worked, but human brains were apparently too different to learn such things. "Martinez, Torres," a voice called out. They turned to see Commander Jake Sullivan walking toward them. He was one of only 12 human instructors at the academy, a former Earth military officer who had adapted quickly to galactic warfare techniques. "Sir," both cadets replied, standing straighter. Commander Sullivan was in his 40s with gray hair at his temples and scars on his hands from his early days fighting in Earth's final wars before joining the galactic community. He had kind eyes but a serious expression that made every cadet pay attention when he spoke. "How did the morning training go?" he asked. "Lisa beat her course time again," Ben said. "She's getting faster every week." The commander nodded approvingly. "Good. You'll need every advantage you can get. The trials of ascension are coming up in 2 months." Lisa felt her stomach tighten. The trials were the Academy's most difficult test. Only cadets who passed could advance to elite special operations training. Most cadets spent years preparing, and many never made it through. For humans, the pressure was even greater. No human had ever passed the trials on their first attempt. "We'll be ready, sir," Lisa said. Commander Sullivan studied her face. "I believe you will be. But remember, the trials aren't just about physical ability or tactical knowledge. They test how you think under pressure, how you adapt when everything goes wrong. Other species have their own strengths, but humans have something different." "What's that, sir?" Ben asked. "Stubbornness," the commander said with a slight smile. "When everyone else gives up, humans find a way to keep going. Don't let anyone tell you that's not valuable." As the commander walked away, Lisa and Ben headed to their next class. The corridors were filled with the sound of different languages and the sight of species Lisa was still learning to identify. A group of Kronar students stood near the weapons training room, their thick gray skin and massive builds making them look like walking mountains. They were known throughout the galaxy as the finest warriors, with natural armor that could stop most energy weapons. In the classroom, Lieutenant Amy Carter was setting up holographic displays for their tactical studies. Lesson: She was younger than Commander Sullivan, with short brown hair and quick movements that reminded Lisa of a bird. Lieutenant Carter had been one of Earth's top military strategists before coming to the Academy. Today we're studying the Battle of Rigel 7, Lieutenant Carter announced as the cadets took their seats. This engagement shows how a smaller force can defeat a larger one through superior positioning and timing. The hologram showed two fleets of ships facing each other in space. The smaller fleet was human, outnumbered 3-1 by an alliance of Zephyrian and Kronar vessels. Lisa watched as the human ships used unconventional tactics, hiding behind asteroids and using debris as weapons. A Zephyrian cadet raised his hand. The human strategy seems unnecessarily complicated. Why not use direct assault techniques? Lieutenant Carter smiled. Because humans learned long ago that we can't always win through superior firepower or technology. We have to be creative. The hologram continued, showing how the human fleet had turned the enemy's strengths against them. They used the Zephyrian speed to make them crash into carefully placed obstacles. They tricked the Kronar ships into firing on each other by exploiting their aggressive nature. Lisa found herself leaning forward, studying every move. This was the kind of thinking that made sense to her. Not brute force or fancy abilities, but using your brain to find solutions that nobody else would consider. After class, she and Ben walked to the dining hall. The food was designed to be safe for all species, which meant it was bland and colorless. Lisa missed her mother's cooking, the spices and flavors of home. But complaining about food seemed small compared to the opportunity she had been given. They sat at a table with Zixara, a female Zephyrian who had become friendly with the human cadets. Her silver skin had thin lines of blue light running through it, patterns that changed based on her mood. Right now they pulsed with curiosity. Your instructor showed interesting battle tactics today, Zixara said in her musical voice. Very different from Zephyrian methods. Different how? Ben asked. We prefer efficiency. Clean solutions. Your species seems to enjoy chaos. Lisa laughed. We don't enjoy chaos. We just learn to use it. When you're the smallest and weakest, you have to be clever. A Mentari cadet named Seelin joined their table. Her large dark eyes were always slightly unsettling to look at, as if she could see thoughts you didn't want to share. Her pale blue skin was marked with silver symbols that indicated her psychic rank. Humans are not weak, Seelin said quietly. Your minds are different, harder to read, more chaotic but also more resistant to mental influence. This was news to Lisa. She had always assumed that psychic species could read human thoughts easily. What do you mean? Most species think in patterns, organized, logical patterns. Human thoughts jump around, make unexpected connections. It is difficult to predict or control. Ben grinned. So we're too crazy for mind control? In a way, yes, Seelin replied seriously. As they finished eating, Lisa noticed a group of older cadets from various species watching their table. Their expressions were not friendly. She had seen this before. The look that said humans didn't belong here, that they were taking spots that should go to more deserving species. One of them, a Kronar with scars across his thick arms, stood up and walked over. His name was Grixtar, and he was known for his strength even among his own people. Human cadets, he said, his voice deep and rumbling. I hear you think you can pass the trials of ascension. Lisa looked up at him calmly. We're going to try. Grixtar laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Your species has been in space for barely 20 years. The trials have existed for centuries. What makes you think you can succeed where so many others have failed? Maybe because we don't. No, it's supposed to be impossible, Lisa replied. The Kronar cadet's expression darkened. Around the dining hall, other students had stopped eating to watch the confrontation. Lisa could feel the tension building, but she didn't back down. She had learned that showing fear to bullies only made them worse. We shall see, Grixtar said finally and walked away. Ben let out a breath he had been holding. Was it smart to make an enemy of the strongest cadet in our year? Lisa shrugged. He was already our enemy. At least now we know it. That evening, As Lisa lay in her dormitory bed, she stared out the window at the alien stars. Nexus Prime had 2 moons, both smaller than Earth's, and they cast strange shadows across the Academy grounds. She thought about Commander Sullivan's words, about human stubbornness and the ability to keep going when others gave up. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and new opportunities to prove that humans belonged among the stars. She was ready for all of it. What she didn't know was that somewhere in the darkness between those alien stars, 3 of the galaxy's most dangerous killers were already making plans for her death. In the depths of space, far from any civilized world, a massive space station drifted in the shadow of a dead star. The station had no name and appeared on no official charts. It was a place where deals were made in darkness, where the galaxy's most powerful beings gathered to discuss matters they could never speak of in public. Director Vexistar stood in the station's central chamber, his 4 arms folded behind his back as he gazed out at the swirling remains of the collapsed star. His species, the Velkari, had been among the first to achieve interstellar travel. Their gray skin was marked with age lines that showed wisdom earned over centuries of life, and their large black eyes could see across multiple spectrums of light. Vextar was the secret leader of the Consortium of Elder Species, an organization that had guided galactic politics for over 2,000 years. They had shaped wars, chosen leaders, and maintained the balance of power that kept the older civilizations in control. The recent rise of humanity threatened everything they had. Built behind him, footsteps echoed in the chamber as 3 figures entered. These were not politicians or diplomats. These were killers, the finest that money and influence could buy in a galaxy full of dangerous beings. The first to approach was Razor, a Zephyrian whose natural grace had been enhanced with illegal cybernetic modifications. His silver skin was marked with thin metal lines that pulsed with energy, and his eyes glowed with artificial light. Most of his bones had been replaced with advanced alloys, and his nervous system had been rewired to process information at superhuman speeds. He moved like liquid mercury, smooth and deadly. "Director," Razor said, his voice carrying the musical tone of his species but with an electronic edge from his modifications. "Your message was most intriguing." The second figure stepped from the shadows without making a sound. Mindbreak appeared to be a normal Mentari female, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. But where most of her species used their psychic abilities for communication and healing, she had turned her gifts toward pain and death. The silver symbols on her forehead marked her as a master-level psychic, but the dark energy that surrounded her warned of corruption and madness. "The payment you offered is generous," she said, her voice echoing strangely as if it came from inside the listener's head rather than from her mouth. "But I am curious about the target that requires such extreme measures." The third assassin made the chamber shake with each step. Bonecrusher was a Kronar warrior who had been cast out from his people for crimes too terrible to speak of publicly. His gray skin was covered with scars from 1,000 battles, and his massive hands ended in claws that could tear through steel. He stood nearly 3 meters tall and weighed as much as a small vehicle. Violence radiated from him like heat from a fire. "Director Vexitar," Bonecrusher rumbled, his voice like distant thunder. "It has been too long since we last met." Vexitar turned to face the 3 killers. Each was legendary in their own right, feared across multiple star systems. Together, they represented enough firepower to level a small city or eliminate an entire military unit. He had chosen them carefully for this particular task. "Thank you all for coming," Vextar said. "What I am about to propose will shape the future of our galaxy." He activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. The image showed Earth, humanity's homeworld, spinning slowly in space. Then the view changed to show human ships, human colonies, and human military bases spreading across dozens of star systems. 20 years ago, we welcomed humanity into the galactic community. Vextar continued. We thought they would be like the other younger species, grateful for our guidance, content to follow where we led. We were wrong. The hologram shifted to show battle footage from recent human conflicts. Human soldiers fought with a viciousness that shocked their alien allies. Human commanders used tactics that broke every established rule of civilized warfare. Human diplomats negotiated with a cunning that left experienced politicians confused and outmaneuvered. Humans adapt too quickly, Vextar said. They learn from every encounter, steal every technique, and improve upon everything they touch. In 2 decades, they have gone from primitive planet-bound creatures to a force that rivals species with thousands of years of spacefaring experience. Razor's enhanced eyes studied the footage with interest. They fight without honor or elegance, like animals. Animals that win, Mindbreak observed, her psychic senses picking up the fear and respect that even Vextar felt toward humanity. Their minds are unlike any species I have encountered. Chaotic, unpredictable, resistant to influence. Bonecrusher laughed, a sound like breaking stone. What does it matter how they think? They bleed and die like any other creature. Vextar nodded. Which brings us to why you are here. The consortium has decided that humanity's expansion must be stopped before it becomes unstoppable. We need to send a message that will make them understand their place in the galactic order. The hologram changed again, now showing the Galactic Military Academy on Nexus Prime. The image focused on the training grounds where cadets from dozens of species practiced combat techniques and tactical maneuvers. The Academy represents everything we stand for, Vextar explained. Cooperation between species, respect for established traditions, and proper deference to elder civilizations. Humans have been sending their best and brightest there, learning our methods and stealing our secrets. A new image appeared, the profile of a young human female with dark hair and determined eyes. Her academy records scrolled past, showing impressive scores in combat training, tactical studies, and leadership exercises. Cadet Lisa Martinez, Vextar said, 19 years old from the North American continent of Earth. She has achieved the highest scores of any human cadet in the Academy's history. Her instructors believe she will be the first human to pass the trials of ascension. Razor studied the image with his enhanced vision, analyzing every detail. She appears unremarkable, small, weak, no obvious enhancements or special abilities. That is exactly what makes her dangerous, Vextar replied. She represents the human ideal, succeeding through intelligence, determination, and adaptability, rather than natural gifts or advanced technology. If she passes the trials, she will become a symbol of human potential. Other species will begin to question why they should follow the leadership of their elders. Mindbreak reached out with her psychic abilities, trying to probe the holographic image as if it were the real person. There is something different about her mind pattern, even in this recording. Most beings think in organized sequences. Her thoughts branch and connect in ways that seem random, but are actually highly efficient. Which is why I need all 3 of you for this task, Vextar said. Individually, you are each capable of eliminating entire military units. Together, you should be able to handle 1 human cadet without difficulty. Bonecrusher cracked his knuckles, a sound like breaking bones. When and where? The Academy will be conducting war games on Kessler 7 in 2 weeks, Vextar explained. It is a harsh moon with dangerous terrain and unpredictable weather. Accidents happen frequently during these exercises. Cadets have died before from equipment, failures, environmental hazards, and training mishaps. The hologram now showed detailed maps of Kessler 7, highlighting the areas where the war games would take place. Canyon systems, rocky plateaus, and underground cave networks provided countless opportunities for ambush and elimination. Your target will be participating in these games with her squad, Vextar continued. The exercise uses live ammunition and real environmental dangers to test the cadets under genuine pressure. Her death must appear to be an unfortunate accident, a training exercise gone wrong. Razor's cybernetic systems were already analyzing the terrain and calculating attack vectors. The canyon systems provide excellent cover for a speed-based assault. I can strike before she even knows she is under attack. The isolation will allow me to work without interference, Mindbreak added. I can break her mind first, make her suffer before the end. The trauma will be visible to her teammates, showing them what happens to humans who reach too high. Bone Crusher, studied the geological data with surprising intelligence for such a brutal creature. The rock formations are unstable. A carefully placed impact could cause landslides that would bury any evidence of our involvement. Vexter smiled, a cold expression that did not reach his black eyes. Excellent. You will have full access to Academy security codes and exercise schedules. My agents have already replaced key monitoring personnel with our own operatives. You will be able to move freely within the exercise area. He activated another display showing payment details. Enough credits to buy entire star systems, rare technologies that could enhance their already formidable abilities, and promises of protection from any legal consequences. The payment will be transferred upon confirmation of the target's elimination, Vextar said. But remember, this must appear to be an accident. If the humans suspect assassination, they will demand an investigation that could expose the consortium. The three killers exchanged glances. They had worked together before on occasions when their individual skills were not sufficient for a task. Each respected the other's abilities even if they did not trust each other personally. When do we leave? Mindbreak asked. The transport ship dropped through the thin atmosphere of Kessler 7 like a falling stone. Lisa pressed her face to the small window and watched the rocky landscape rush past below. The moon was a harsh place, covered in deep canyons and sharp mountain peaks that looked like broken teeth against the dark sky. First time seeing Kessler 7? Asked Ben Torres, who sat beside her in the cramped passenger compartment. His voice was tight with nervous energy. Yeah, Lisa replied. It looks like someone took a planet and smashed it with a giant hammer. Around them, other cadets from their class sat in similar rows of seats. The transport held 30 students, representing a dozen different species. Everyone was dressed in standard combat gear, gray uniforms with armor plates, helmet with communication systems, and basic survival equipment. Each cadet carried a training weapon that fired plasma bolts, powerful enough to stun or kill. Zixera, the Zephyrian cadet who had become friends with the humans, sat across the aisle. Her silver skin showed patterns of blue light that indicated excitement mixed with worry. The war games here are famous throughout the galaxy, she said. Many cadets who fail never return to the academy. Cheerful, Ben muttered. Lieutenant, Amy Carter stood at the front of the transport as it began its final approach to the landing zone. She held onto a support rail as the ship bounced through rough air currents. Listen up, she called out. You all know the basic mission parameters, but I want to go over them one more time. This is a survival and tactical exercise. You'll be divided into squads of 5 and dropped at different points around the Broken Tooth Canyon system. The ship's main screen activated, showing a 3-dimensional map of the area. Deep gorges cut through rocky plateaus like scars in the moon's surface. Narrow paths wound between towering stone walls, and cave systems tunneled through the mountains. Each squad has 3 objectives, Lieutenant Carter continued. First, reach the communication relay at grid point 77 and transmit your squad identification. Second, secure the supply cache at grid point 42 and retrieve the data module. Third, reach the extraction point at grid point 11 within 72 hours. A Kroner cadet raised his massive hand. What about hostile contact, Lieutenant? The exercise includes automated defense systems and environmental hazards. Some weapons fire live ammunition. Some traps are designed to cause real injury or death. This is not a simulation. You can be hurt or killed if you make mistakes. Lisa felt her stomach tighten. She had read about previous war games on Kessler 7. 3 cadets had died during exercises in the past 5 years. Equipment failures, falls from cliff faces, and exposure to the moon's harsh environment claimed lives regularly. Squad assignments are posted on your tactical displays, Lieutenant, Carter announced. Study your team composition and plan accordingly. Remember, this exercise tests your ability to work together under extreme stress. Lisa checked her display and felt a mix of relief and concern. Her squad included Ben Torres, which was good. They had trained together for months and understood each other's fighting style. Zixara was also assigned to their team, bringing Zephyrian speed and technical knowledge. The other 2 squad members were less familiar. Cylin, the quiet Mentari cadet with psychic abilities, rarely spoke in class but had impressive scores in tactical analysis. The fifth member was Kethvar, a Kronar who was smaller than most of his species but still twice the size of any human. "Not a bad team," Ben said, looking over the assignments. "We've got speed, strength, psychic abilities, and human stubbornness. Don't forget Kronar honor," Kethvar added in his deep voice. Unlike many of his people, he had shown respect for human cadets from the beginning. "My clan teaches that courage comes in many forms." The transport touched down on a flat area between two canyon walls. The landing zone was bare rock swept clean by constant winds. As the cadets filed out of the Yao ship, Lisa felt the difference in gravity immediately. Kessler 7 had lower gravity than most inhabited worlds, making every step feel light and bouncy. The air was thin and cold, carrying the smell of dust and something metallic that made her nose wrinkle. Above them, the sky was a strange purple color, with Nexus Prime visible as a bright blue dot among unfamiliar stars. "Squad leaders report to the command post for final briefings," Lieutenant Carter called out. "All squads will be deployed within the next 2 hours." Lisa's squad had elected her as leader during their pre-mission planning. She jogged over to where Lieutenant Carter was setting up a portable command station. Maps and communication equipment covered a folding table, and senior instructors from various species stood nearby with serious expressions. "Martinez," Lieutenant Carter said as Lisa approached. "Your squad drew insertion point Charlie 9. It's a narrow ledge about halfway down the eastern canyon wall. The climb to reach your first objective will test your team's climbing skills and teamwork." Lisa studied the map coordinates. Charlie 9 was isolated with steep cliffs above and below. If someone got injured during insertion, evacuation would be difficult or impossible. "Any specific environmental hazards we should know about?" she asked. "Rock slides are common in that area. The stone is unstable and even small impacts can trigger major collapses. Also watch the weather. Kessler 7 gets sudden storms that can flood the canyon systems with little warning." As Lisa returned to her squad, she noticed something that made her pause. Near the command post, 3 figures in academy instructor uniforms were studying tactical displays with unusual intensity. She didn't recognize them, which was strange since she knew most of the academy's teaching staff. The first was a Zephyrian whose silver skin seemed somehow brighter than normal, with thin lines of energy pulsing beneath the surface. The second appeared to be a Mentari, but something about her felt wrong, a darkness that made Lisa's skin crawl when she looked too closely. The third was a massive Kronar, whose scars and bearings suggested far more combat experience than most academy instructors possessed. "Lisa," Ben called out, interrupting her observation. "We need to go over equipment checks." She pushed her concerns aside and focused on preparing her squad. They spent the next hour reviewing their gear, discussing tactics, and studying the terrain maps. Each cadet carried enough food and water for 4 days, medical supplies, climbing equipment, and tools for basic repairs. Their weapons were standard academy training rifles that fired plasma bolts. The weapons had multiple settings: stun mode for practice, full power for serious threats, and an overload mode that could be used once before the weapon was destroyed. Lisa hoped they wouldn't need the overload setting. "Transport 7 is ready for Squad 12. An announcement called over the communication system. "Insertion in 10 minutes. Lisa's squad gathered their equipment and boarded a smaller transport designed for precision drops in difficult terrain. The pilot was a veteran Zephyrian who had been flying academy exercises for over 20 years. "Charlie 9 is a tricky insertion," the pilot told them as they lifted off. "I'll hover as close to the ledge as possible, but you'll still need to jump about 2 meters. The wind can be unpredictable, so be ready for anything." Through the transport's windows, Lisa watched the canyon system grow larger as they approached. The walls were hundreds of meters high, carved by ancient rivers that had long since dried up. Narrow paths wound between towering stone formations, and dark cave openings dotted the cliff faces like empty eyes. "There," the pilot announced, pointing ahead. "Charlie 9 coming up." The ledge was smaller than Lisa had expected, barely wide enough for all 5 squad members to stand safely. Below them, the canyon floor was lost in shadows. Above, the cliff, face stretched upward like a wall blocking out half the sky. "Remember the plan," Lisa told her squad as they prepared to jump. Zixara goes first with the climbing gear. Cylin uses her abilities to check for unstable rock. Kethvar provides anchor points for the ropes. Ben and I cover the team during movement. One by one, they leaped from the hovering transport to the narrow ledge. Lisa went last, feeling her heart race as she sailed through the thin air and landed, hard on the rocky surface. The transport immediately pulled away, leaving them alone in the vast canyon system. "Radio check," Lisa said into her helmet communicator. "Squad 12 to base. We are successfully inserted at Charlie 9, she reported. "Beginning phase 1 of the exercise." "Copy that, Squad 12, came the reply from the command post. "Exercise is now active. Good hunting." As the squad began unpacking their climbing gear, none of them noticed the three figures watching from a concealed position high above. Razor, Mindbreak, and Bone Crusher had been tracking the transport since it left the landing zone. They had studied the insertion points and chosen Charlie 9 as the perfect place to spring their trap. "The target is isolated from other squads," Razor reported into his private communicator. "Terrain provides excellent cover for our approach." "Her squad will be separated during the climbing phase," Mindbreak added, her psychic senses already reaching out to probe the cadets below. "I can create distractions that will isolate her from the others." Bone Crusher studied the cliff face with a warrior's eye for tactical advantage. "The rock formations are unstable. I can trigger collapses. That will appear natural while eliminating witnesses." Lisa's squad had been climbing for 2 hours when the rockslide hit. The sound came first, a low rumble that seemed to come from inside the canyon walls themselves. Then chunks of stone began falling from above, bouncing off the cliff face and tumbling into the darkness below. "Take cover," Lisa shouted, pressing herself against the rock wall as debris crashed around them. The squad had spread out during their climb, using different routes to reach the first checkpoint. Zixara was furthest ahead, her Zephyrian grace allowing her to move quickly up the steep path. Cylin and Kethvar were in the middle, while Ben stayed close to Lisa as they brought up the rear. When the rock slide ended, Lisa looked around and felt her heart sink. A wall of fallen stone now blocked the narrow path between her position and the rest of her squad. She could hear Ben calling her name from the other side, but the barrier was too high and unstable to climb over safely. "Lisa, can you hear me?" Ben's voice came through her helmet radio, filled with static from the rock interference. "I'm here," she replied. "Are you hurt?" "We're all okay, but the path is completely blocked. It'll take hours to clear a way through, and the rock looks ready to fall again if we disturb it." Lisa studied the canyon walls around her. She was trapped on a small ledge with steep cliffs above and below. The only way forward was a narrow crack in the rock face that led deeper into the canyon system. "I'm going to find another route," she told her squad. "Keep moving toward the checkpoint. I'll meet you there." "Lisa, wait." Zixara's musical voice cut through the static. This was not a natural rock slide. The stones fell in a pattern, as if something triggered them deliberately. Before Lisa could respond, a figure dropped from the cliff above and landed on her ledge with impossible grace. It was a Zephyrian, but something was wrong with him. His silver skin glowed too brightly, and thin lines of energy pulsed beneath, the surface like electronic circuits. His eyes were solid white, showing cybernetic enhancements that were illegal in most parts of the galaxy. "Cadet Lisa Martinez," the figure said in a voice that sounded like music played through a machine. "My name is Razor. I have been sent to deliver a message from those who believe humans have risen too far too fast." Lisa's training kicked in immediately. She rolled to one side as Razor's arm extended, revealing energy blades that cut through the air where she had been standing. The weapons hummed with power, designed to slice through armor and bone with equal ease. "Who sent you?" Lisa demanded, raising her training rifle and switching it to full power mode. Razor laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Those who remember when the galaxy had proper order, before humans began to upset the balance with their chaos and ambition." He moved faster than anything Lisa had ever seen. One moment he was standing at the far end of the ledge, the next he was beside her, his energy blades slashing toward her throat. Lisa threw herself backward, feeling the heat from the weapons pass inches from her face. Her rifle fired 3 quick shots, but Razor was already somewhere else, his enhanced reflexes, allowing him to dodge faster than she could aim. The plasma bolt struck empty air and burned holes in the canyon wall. "You fight like a human," Razor taunted, appearing behind her with his blades ready to strike. Clumsy, predictable, inferior. But Lisa had grown up in a species that survived by being unpredictable. Instead of trying to match Razor's speed, she did something no trained warrior would expect. She jumped off the ledge. Razor's blades cut through empty air as Lisa fell toward the canyon floor far below. But she had noticed something during her study of the terrain maps, a narrow outcropping about 10 meters down, hidden from view above. She caught the rocky projection with one hand, her body slamming against the cliff face hard enough to drive the air from her lungs. Above her, Razor peered over the edge, his enhanced eyes scanning for her body. "Foolish human. Better to die from the fall than face what I had planned for you." Lisa hung in silence, controlling her breathing and waiting. Her muscles screamed from the impact and the strain of holding her full weight, but she forced herself to remain still. After several minutes, she heard Razor move away from the edge, probably searching for another route down to confirm her death. She pulled herself up onto the narrow outcropping and checked her equipment. Her rifle had been damaged. In the fall, its power cell cracked and useless. Her helmet radio was also broken, cutting her off from her squad. But she was alive, and that was more than Razor expected. Lisa began climbing back up, using handholds that were barely wide enough for her fingers. The cybernetically enhanced Zephyrian was fast and strong, but he thought like a machine, logical, efficient, predictable. Humans had learned long ago that survival sometimes required doing things that made no logical sense. When she reached the original ledge, Razor was gone. But Lisa's instincts told her he would be back. She needed to reach her squad and warn them about the assassin, but first she had to survive whatever other surprises were waiting for her. She entered the narrow crack in the canyon wall that led deeper into the rock formation. The passage was barely wide enough for her shoulders, and darkness swallowed her headlamp beam after just a few meters. But it was the only route available, and staying in the open meant certain death when Razor returned. The tunnel wound through the rock like a maze, branching and twisting in ways that made no geological sense. Lisa realized that some of these passages had been carved by intelligent beings, probably as hiding places or defensive positions during ancient wars. After 20 minutes of crawling through the narrow spaces, she emerged in a small cave lit by phosphorescent minerals in the walls. The chamber was large enough to stand up in, with several passages leading off in different directions. Lisa sat down to rest and plan her next move. That was when she felt the pressure in her mind. It started as a whisper at the edge of her thoughts, like a voice calling from very far away. Then it grew stronger, pushing against her consciousness with alien intelligence. Images flashed through her head, scenes of terror and death, memories that were not her own. A figure stepped from the shadows at the far end of the cave. It was a Mentari, but like Razor, this one was wrong. Her pale blue skin was marked with dark veins that pulsed with malevolent energy. The silver symbols on her forehead, which should have indicated healing abilities, instead radiated menace and madness. "Welcome to your nightmare, little human," the creature said, her voice echoing inside Lisa's skull rather than through her ears. "I am Mindbreak, and I am going to tear your sanity apart piece by piece before I allow you to die." The psychic assault intensified, flooding Lisa's mind with visions of horror. She saw herself failing the academy, disappointing her family, dying alone and forgotten. She felt the weight of every fear she had ever experienced, magnified until they threatened to crush her spirit entirely. But human minds had been forged in the fires of evolution, shaped by millions of years of predators and survival challenges. Where other species had developed psychic defenses through technology or training, humans had something different: the ability to transform fear into rage, to use terror as fuel for determination. Lisa felt the psychic attack washing over her consciousness, and instead of fighting it, she embraced it. Every fear, every doubt, every moment of pain in her life became a weapon she could use. The chaos in her mind, which should have broken her, instead made her stronger. Impossible. Mindbreak hissed, her confidence shaking as she felt resistance, where there should have been submission. Your mind should be shattered by now. Lisa stood up slowly, her eyes blazing with determination. You made a mistake, she said quietly. You tried to use my fears against me. But humans learned long ago that fear is just another tool. She pulled a small explosive charge from her survival kit, standard equipment for clearing blocked passages during climbing exercises. But instead of using it as designed, Lisa began modifying the device with components from her broken rifle. Mindbreak increased her psychic assault, pouring all her power into breaking the humans' resistance. But Lisa's mind was like water, flowing around the attacks instead of breaking against them. The harder Mindbreak pushed, the more elusive Lisa's thoughts became. What are you doing? Mindbreak demanded, finally realizing that her victim was not behaving like any species she had encountered before. Lisa finished her modifications and smiled grimly. Something my instructors taught me. When you can't win by following the rules, change the game. She hurled the improvised explosive device at the cave ceiling. Mindbreak tried to stop it with her psychic powers, but Lisa's mind was already focused on the next step. The explosion brought down tons of rock, filling the chamber with dust and debris. When the dust settled, Mindbreak was trapped under a pile of stones, her concentration broken and her psychic abilities disrupted by the physical trauma. Lisa crawled through the wreckage, her body battered, but her spirit unbroken. You understand nothing about humans, Lisa told the wounded assassin. We don't fight fair, we don't follow your rules. We do whatever it takes to survive. She left Mindbreak buried in the collapsed cave and continued through the tunnel system, following passages that led toward the surface. Her squad was still out there, possibly facing other assassins. She had to warn them and find a way to turn the hunt around. Lisa found her squad at the first checkpoint, huddled behind a rock formation while something massive moved through the canyon below. Ben's face lit up with relief when he saw her climbing over the ridge. Lisa, thank God, he whispered, pulling her down behind cover. We thought you were dead when we heard the explosions. I'm fine, she replied, though her torn uniform and countless scrapes told a different story. But we have bigger problems. Someone sent assassins after me. I've already dealt with 2 of them, but there's at least 1 more out there. Sixara's silver skin flickered with patterns of shock and disbelief. Assassins? But why would anyone want to kill a cadet? Because I'm human, Lisa said grimly. Someone doesn't want us to succeed here. Before anyone could respond, the ground beneath them began to shake. Heavy footsteps echoed through the canyon, each one causing small rocks to tumble from the cliff faces. Whatever was making those sounds was enormous and heading directly toward their position. There, Cylin whispered, pointing toward the canyon floor. A figure emerged from behind a massive boulder, and Lisa felt her blood run cold. It was a Kronar, but bigger than any she had ever seen. He stood nearly 4 meters tall, with arms like tree trunks and hands that could crush stone. Scars covered his gray skin from countless battles, and his eyes burned with hatred and violence. This was Bone Crusher, the 3rd assassin. Lisa Martinez, the giant bellowed, his voice echoing off the canyon walls. I am Bone Crusher of the Kronar, Death Clans. Your friends cannot help you now. Come down and face me, or I will climb up there and kill them all before I take you. Kethvar, the Kronar member of Lisa's squad, stared at the assassin in horror. He is Rogoth marked, he whispered. Cast out from all clans for crimes against honor. He should have been executed long ago. Well, he wasn't, Lisa said, checking her remaining equipment. She had almost nothing left. A damaged knife, some rope, and a few emergency supplies. And now he's here for me. We fight together, Ben said firmly. That's what squads do. Lisa shook her head. This isn't your fight. He wants to send a message about humans, and killing other species won't accomplish that. I go down alone, or he comes up here and kills everyone. Lisa, no, Zixara protested. He is 3 times your size and trained in Kronar combat techniques. You cannot possibly defeat him. Maybe not, Lisa admitted, but I have to try. She began climbing down toward the canyon floor, ignoring her squad's protests. Bonecrusher watched her descent with satisfaction, cracking his massive knuckles as she approached. The sound was like breaking stone. You are smaller than I expected, Bonecrusher rumbled as Lisa reached the bottom of the canyon. Are you certain you are the human who has caused so much concern among the elder species? I'm just a cadet trying to pass her trials, Lisa replied, keeping her distance from the massive warrior. But if someone has a problem with that, I'm ready to discuss it. Bonecrusher laughed, a sound like an avalanche. Brave words from such a tiny creature. I have killed warriors 10 times your size. Your death will be quick, but not painless. Charged toward her with surprising speed for something so large. Lisa dove to one side, barely avoiding his crushing fists as they smashed into the rock where she had been standing. The impact left craters in the stone and sent shock waves through the ground. Lisa rolled and came up running, heading for the narrow part of the canyon where the walls were closer together. She needed to use the terrain to her advantage, because direct confrontation with Bonecrusher would be suicide. The Kronar assassin pursued her, his heavy footsteps shaking loose rocks from above. You cannot run forever, human. I will catch you, and when I do, I will tear you apart with my bare hands. Lisa reached the narrow section and spun to face her pursuer. The canyon walls were only about 10 meters apart here, rising straight up for hundreds of meters. More importantly, she had noticed something during her earlier study of the geological surveys. Stress fractures in the rock, weakened by the explosions from her encounters with the other assassins. You want to know what makes humans dangerous? Lisa called out as Bonecrusher approached. It's not that we're stronger or faster or smarter than everyone else. Bonecrusher slowed his charge, curious despite himself. Then what? We're crazy enough to do things that should be impossible, Lisa replied. She pulled out her remaining rope and began tying one end around her waist. And we never give up, even when we should. Before Bonecrusher could react, Lisa threw the other end of the rope around a large boulder and jumped toward the canyon wall. Using her momentum, she swung across the narrow space and kicked off the opposite wall, building speed as she pendulated back and forth. What are you doing? Bonecrusher roared, trying to grab her as she swung past. Something stupid, Lisa shouted, back. She pulled out her damaged knife and began cutting handholds in the canyon wall as she swung, each impact sending vibrations through the already weakened stone. Bonecrusher realized what she was attempting and tried to stop her. He grabbed for the rope, but Lisa changed direction at the last second, swinging higher up the wall where he couldn't reach. The humans have a saying, Lisa called down to him. If you can't go through something, go around it. If you can't go around it, go over it. If you can't go over it, blow it up. She had reached one of the major stress fractures in the rock, a crack that ran from the canyon floor all the way to the top. Using her knife, she began prying at loose stones, causing small avalanches that struck the same weak points again and again. Bonecrusher finally understood what she was doing and tried to escape, but it was too late. The repeated impacts had destabilized the entire cliff face. With a sound like thunder, the canyon wall began to collapse. Lisa swung clear as tons of rock crashed down where Bonecrusher had been standing. The massive Kronar disappeared under an avalanche that would have buried a building. When the dust settled, only silence remained. Lisa dropped to the canyon floor and untied the rope from her waist. Her hands were shaking from exhaustion and adrenaline, but she was alive. 3 of the galaxy's most dangerous assassins had come for her, and she had defeated them all. Her squad reached her just as Academy rescue teams arrived, alerted by the massive explosions and rockfalls. Commander Sullivan and Lieutenant Carter were among the first to arrive, their faces showing relief mixed with amazement as they surveyed the scene. Martinez, Commander Sullivan said, looking at the collapsed cliff face. What exactly happened here? Training accident, sir, Lisa replied wearily. The rock was unstable. I was trying to reach the checkpoint when it all came down. Lieutenant Carter studied the destruction with a tactical officer's eye. She could see that this was no accident, but she also understood that some questions were better left unasked in official reports. "Are you injured, Cadet?" she asked. "Nothing serious, ma'am, just tired." Over the next few hours, as rescue teams searched for survivors and Academy officials investigated the incident, word began to spread through the galactic community. 3 legendary assassins had disappeared on Kessler 7. Security footage had been mysteriously corrupted. The only witness was a human cadet who claimed everything had been a series of training accidents. Director Vextar, watching from his secret station, felt something he had never experienced before: fear. His perfect plan had not only failed, it had backfired completely. Instead of eliminating a promising human cadet, he had created a legend. Stories would spread about the human who had survived what should have been impossible odds. Back at the HFY Academy, Lisa sat in the medical bay while a doctor treated her minor injuries. Ben, Zixara, Silin, and Kethvar sat nearby, still processing what had happened. "The other instructors are calling it miraculous," Ben said quietly. 3 major rock slides, and you were the only one in the area who survived. "Lucky, I guess," Lisa replied. Zixara's skin showed patterns of deep respect. "Luck had nothing to do with it. You fought like nothing I have ever seen. Not elegant or honorable, but effective. Humans fight to win," Lisa said simply. "Everything else is just decoration." Silin, who had been silent for most of the conversation, finally spoke. "I felt the psychic residue in that canyon. Something terrible happened there. Something beyond any training accident. You faced real killers and defeated them." Lisa met her gaze steadily. "Sometimes the galaxy needs to be reminded that humans didn't reach the stars by being weak or giving up easily. We're here to stay, whether some people like it or not." 2 months later, Lisa became the first human to pass the trials of ascension on her first attempt. Her success opened doors for other human cadets and changed how the galaxy viewed humanity's potential. The consortium of elder species quietly disbanded, their members realizing that trying to control humanity was more dangerous than allowing them to find their own path among the stars. Lisa graduated from the Academy with top honors and went on to serve in Galactic Special Operations. She never spoke publicly about what really happened on Kessler 7, but her actions had sent a clear message across the galaxy. Humans were not to be underestimated, threatened, or dismissed. In her final letter home to Earth, Lisa wrote to her parents about making friends among the alien cadets and learning valuable lessons about cooperation and determination.